A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of King Herod, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star at its rising, and have come to do him homage. When King Herod heard this, he was greatly troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They said to him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it has been written through the prophet, And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler, who is to shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod called the Magi secretly, and ascertained from them the time of the star's appearance. He sent them to Bethlehem, and said, Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word, that I too may go and do him homage. After their audience with the king, they set out. And behold, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them, until it came and stopped over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. Then they opened their treasures, and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed for their country by another way. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Today we celebrate the feast of the Epiphany of the Lord. It's a very well-known feast. We celebrate it every year, a couple weekends after Christmas. And this Gospel reading from Matthew is the one that we get year after year, so it's probably very familiar to all of us. These Magi, these wise men, come from the east to see the newborn infant Jesus, and they offer him 3 gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And we know that they follow a star, which interestingly enough fulfills a prophecy, one of the many prophecies that Matthew didn't talk about in today's Gospel reading. You see that this visit from the Magi fulfills a lot of prophecies. Matthew likes to point out those Old Testament prophecies coming to fulfillment, but he doesn't mention this one. And it's in the 24th chapter of Numbers, 24th chapter of the book of Numbers in the Old Testament, one of the first books of the Bible. And this man named Balaam, son of Beor, is this minor prophet, very, very minor. Possibly a Magi himself. He had the same job. He's looking at stars. These Magi were most likely astrologers, in a sense, where they like to look at the stars or study the stars. That's how they were able to find this star. And they find this peculiar star in the sky, which fulfills this prophecy of Balaam that says, a star shall advance from Jacob. So here these Magi are. They're familiar with this prophecy because of this man from their own kin, basically, Balaam, saying, look out for this star. And so the Magi find this star in the sky, and they decide this is a big deal. And so they go and they meet the infant Jesus and his mother Mary. We hear the story year after year. It's very familiar to us. And they offer their gifts to the child. But why is this feast called the Epiphany? I'm sure if you would say the word Epiphany to you, maybe the only definition you could come up with, or you know, is related to this religious day. Oh, it's the day when the Magi came to see Jesus. It's the day when those 3 kings came to see Jesus and presented him gifts. Well, actually, an epiphany isn't a word, and it has a definition and a meaning beyond the religious sense, where actually the church gets the name of this day based on the definition of an epiphany. It's a noun. And what an epiphany is a revelation. It's an aha moment. It's when the pieces of the puzzle suddenly come together and everything makes sense. That's what an epiphany is. It's to be able to see something right in front of you and fully comprehend it. It's to have all knowledge about something. It's when the light bulb goes off. That's an epiphany moment, and what an epiphany is. And naturally, as the church names this day, these magi had a great epiphany when they saw and when they met the child Jesus. Because they knew instantly, this is a special baby. And it says they prostrated themselves and gave him these rare, expensive gifts. In our own lives, we have many epiphanies. I'm sure we can think of those aha moments, or when a light bulb goes off, or when something has been revealed to us. We can call those epiphanies and epiphany moments in our life. And I'm willing to bet that every one of us, myself included, has had a lot of epiphany moments in the year 2020. We've moved past it. We are beyond 2020. I hate to bring it up again. But one last time to talk about an epiphany, because there were a lot of epiphany moments that hopefully we had in 2020. Although there were a lot of challenges and struggles and hardships in that year, there were a lot of maturing, growing, learning experiences. A lot of epiphanies were presented to us, and hopefully we were able to pick up on them and to take them to heart. I'm sure after last year, we're not going to take waiting at a restaurant for granted ever again. We're not going to take mail that takes about 2 days to deliver, maybe 3, 1 day, whatever. And we've seen the mail get kind of delayed this year. We won't take that for granted again. We won't take short waits and maybe little inconveniences of a doctor's office. There's a couple people in front of you. Or maybe the emergency room. Again, there's a couple people in front of you. But we won't take that for granted anymore. Where we won't take our job security for granted anymore. Or we won't assume that I'll be able to go to the office. We won't take going to Mass on Easter, even though it's very crowded. We won't take that for granted again. We won't take just going to the store whenever you feel like it. And a lot of people in the store, and again, when there's a lot of people in front of you at the checkout line, we won't take that for granted anymore, because we would just be glad that we're allowed to go to the store, or that we're allowed to go to church, or that we're allowed to go to work or school. There's been a lot of epiphany moments in the year 2020, and a lot of things that we can't take for granted anymore. We can't take for granted it being healthy. And we've learned a lot now. We've learned to wash our hands more. And to maybe stop shaking hands or high-fiving. We might not take that for granted anymore if we're allowed to go back to those practices. There's been so much. And I'm sure on a personal level, it's even more things that you've learned. For some people, they weren't allowed to graduate normally, or have a senior prom, or put on their musical. Or some people weren't even allowed to play their spring sports, and some right now aren't even allowed to play their fall sports. People weren't allowed to go to the gyms, or the bars, or to music halls, or to the movie theaters, or even to the mall. And almost everybody wasn't allowed to see their family, their grandparents, their parents, their children, their aunts and uncles, and holidays were a lot different. Hopefully we never take these gatherings and these events and being able to go anywhere without a mask and all of this, hopefully we never take that for granted again. Hopefully 2020, amidst all the struggles and challenges that it brought, hopefully it was a learning and growing and maturing experience for all of us. Hopefully we had an epiphany moment or two or a lot in 2020. where the stuff that we can usually do without thinking about it, where there's little inconveniences with lines and waiting, and there's conversations that you know you have to be somewhere, but that person really wants to talk. However it is that our life was changed in 2020, hopefully we learned from that year. Hopefully there was a lot of growth and maturing in these epiphany moments, these moments of revelation, these aha moments. And hopefully we will now be able to learn from these moments when the light bulb goes off and the pieces of the puzzle all come together. And hopefully we can be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. 2020, people say hindsight is 2020. Now, my brothers and sisters, we can officially say 2020 is in hindsight. Happy New Year, everyone. Let's take the epiphany moments, the learning experiences, and all that happened to us in 2020, and let's allow it to make us become the best versions of ourselves that we can be. And so have a great 2021, full of new opportunities, new possibilities, and even more growth, even more learning, and even more epiphanies. Again, Happy New Year, and happy feast of the Epiphany.